Welcome to The Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for today's episode. This is the second and final part of the episode with Cassie, speaking of her experiences with family and domestic violence and sexual violence. A couple of things I want to say before we get started with this episode. The first is I want to let you know that while part one of this episode was a lot more in depth around her experiences of living within that family and domestic violence and sexual violence relationship, there are still things that in this episode may be triggering for some people. And if you do have an emotional response, then there are numbers at the end of the show notes that you can access for additional support. I also wanted to say that in this episode, Cassie speaks about how hard it was after she left the relationship. There's a lot of barriers, there are a lot of obstacles, there are a lot of hoops that she had to jump through in order to successfully leave. And we're sharing Cassie's experiences, but she did it. She made it out, and she's been out of that relationship for 7 years. And so while at times it feels heavy hearing some of those experiences, the light at the end of the tunnel is that she did it. And the message at the end of the episode that Cassie shares is that if she did it, you can do it too. So if you're in a family and domestic violence or a sexual violence relationship, then she hopes that you hear this as hope rather than focusing on it's too hard, because she did it. If you haven't heard part one of this episode, I encourage you to listen to part one before you listen to this part of the episode. It will make more sense. So we're picking up with this episode. At the end of part one, Cassie had just shared about a particularly horrendous attack where she thought she was going to die. And this episode picks up where she has actually left that relationship. Thanks for listening.
So he wasn't arrested because there was no evidence at this stage.
But the neighbours saw.
At this stage they only heard they knew it was a violent home. They stayed away. The little old lady next door hated when she could hear it. And then the other couple, and look, I mean, I remember getting to the station and them saying, do you want to press charges? But that means you are going to have to stand up in court and give evidence, and you are going to have to face this person. And you know how hard it is that you're so scared of this person. You can't come head to head with this person in court. He's going to just put you down like a little ant, like you're not looking that you have the strength to actually stand up and give this, because this person's going to come back at me if I'm giving him a criminal record, aren't I? Yeah. And he's telling everybody I'm making it up, even though there's blood coming out of the back of my head and strangulation, bruises all over my neck. And, my kids are beside themselves, and he's telling everyone I'm making it up. So I did it to myself. So there's very odd behaviour, unpredictable behaviour. Yeah.
How do you move on from that?
Oh my goodness. That's a journey and a half.
Yeah.
It's a battle that I've actually struggled with more than living in that house. Yeah. And it's hard for other people to really understand that to the degree. I still live day to day with my own struggles, from the torture and the battle, the fight, the justification, the learning to love yourself again, learning to know yourself again. And it's, I'm not even nowhere near there. I have a long journey. And I did go into a relationship 3 years after I'd sort of left. Well, it was probably 4 years. But there was so much damage there. One, it fogs your your judgment of people, and your validation of yourself is at a minimal. So you don't care, you're not looking at somebody and going, oh, if you're not gonna sort of put into the relationship, I'm not going to give you, because you're molded to just cater for somebody like that. And I think I've now moved on from that relationship, and that was a big stepping stone in a good way, but then also in a negative way. But then, you know, I think that's life, isn't it? You sort of got to take lessons from what you get given and what journey you've got.
Yeah, I'm struggling to be able to even comprehend how you manage to trust someone again, let alone sleep with someone again.
I don't think you do trust somebody again, and I think that's another
probably
thing.
part of the problem.
And that's something. I don't let my guard down very often. I'm very very protective over my kids, but I don't think you ever learn to open up and trust somebody. And maybe one day I will. I don't know. And, you know, I think for me now it's enjoying my kids, because I've made a beautiful home for me and my kids, and we all feel safe, and they know who I am. I've always been upfront. They know where I've come from.
Yeah.
And for my two boys, they're growing into, you know, really respectable men. My little girl, who I never thought would be the one, because my boys have always had counselling, you know. My little girl was 3 when we got out, and she's now had very severe mental health issues for the last 2 years. So it's such a ripple effect, you know.
And there's a lot of, I guess when you're in there and when you're experiencing it, you think, well, the boys are the ones who lived through it. They're the ones who saw it.
They were the ones that dragged out to watch their mother be violated in a sexual way, you know. For me, I really was, or even just physically or emotionally, you know, the things I used to be bullied into the corner and screamed at in my face for about half an hour. My kids used to sit there, and, you know, it's
just ate their dinner.
The brain itself, you can't tell me it's not absorbing that. So
no, look, most definitely, and that's, you know, that's what I was going to say. Obviously, you expect that has impacted them, and so counselling and, you know, you're
continual
looking for that
group support and understanding and being open and good exposure to a healthy relationship.
Yeah, but when we're learning more about how trauma impacts, like, a developing fetal brain, and how trauma impacts, you know, developing infant brains as well. So even though your youngest didn't witness it in the same way, and hopefully doesn't remember it in the same way the boys do, it makes sense that she's still been impacted, and that her, you know, her brain has been impacted by trauma.
Well, that's another door that I've had to open and learn. And, you know, it's funny because when she's always been a very cold personality. I've always found it hard to bond with her, even though I was the one that she came to the whole time. And I breastfed her, and, you know, I was a stay-at-home mum, and we did all those things that you do as your toddlers as they grow. It was very hard to connect, and some people even used to say, oh, you know, she looks really angry, and I'd be like, oh, you know, it's just she's just tired, or you know, you don't see it, you see your beautiful little girl, and nothing's wrong with her at all. And I think she got to about 8, and it was like something snapped. It was just like she started having violent episodes, and they were all directed at me. And it got that bad that I ended up having bruises from head to toe. She would follow me around saying, you deserve this. You're the worst mum, you know, just things that you would never think would come out of an 8-year-old's mouth. And that was just the beginning. So they then escalated onto averaging out 11 hours straight episodes. And I'm not exaggerating there. It was something that wasn't a child just having a tantrum or getting angry. And, you know, in the meantime, I'm trying, by this stage, we have 7 kids. Yeah. So I'm just trying to make everything, or 6 at this stage, but to fit and work. And I was working. She wasn't going to school. I would have to get her out of bed, and, like, she'd be kicking, biting, punching, and I'd have the boys put the child locks on the door, and then I would have duct taped the locks on the front door, and I'd put her in the car, and she'd be in her pajamas, and she's like, hairs out here, like absolutely crazy. And I would end up having to restrain her, and she's kicking me in the back of the head, and we only live at this stage 600 metres from the school.
Thank goodness.
And I would have rang the school because we'd had a plan set up because she can't miss school.
Yeah.
That an EA would be there and the principal, and it was an amazing school, and they'd just be waiting at the other end. And if we could catch her getting out of the car, it was an easy transition, because then they'd just put a lock on and she'd get changed and go to school.
Yeah.
She was fine. Mum's at home like crying and thinking that my whole life's over and I'm the worst mum in the world.
And she's having a happy day.
Fine, yeah, as they do.
Yeah.
Or if she escaped, we'd be chasing her for about an hour. Like she's running down the road and I'm jumping on her, and the teacher's trying to hold the door. And
I know it's not funny, but it is.
You have to laugh. Yeah. You really do. Like I think back on it now, and I actually bought the teacher a really nice Christmas present. And it was a big bottle of scotch.
That's it. I feel like my child may have driven you to drink.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, please forgive us. But yeah.
And that's it. Like, there are so many. It's not just what happens at the time.
No.
There's so many kind of knock-on effects, and you couldn't have anticipated that.
Oh, that was the last avenue I thought had come to me at.
Yeah.
I really did. Like, the court has only just finished. So I've been in court, 7 years pretty much, of fighting for my kids and fighting for my half of, like, some form of asset so I could move on with my kids. Even fighting to move away, you know. Even fighting the divorce. He didn't turn up to court twice, and you can't just get a divorce without the other person's consent unless you go and get an affidavit and you get all it just rolls on. And, like it's like after 8 months I got divorced. Yeah. But he not once turned up. I had to go and get affidavits. I had to go and get evidence. I had to prove everything. It just feels like everything's a battle. And in his mind, he's happy, Yeah, he's actually laughing because he knows I'm jumping through everybody's
that trauma
hoops.
For you, yeah.
Yeah, like drug tests. I got drug tested constantly, and I'm not the one that
weren't the one using.
I'm not the one that did anything wrong or using.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not the person in question here.
Yeah.
He ordered an SEW, and I had somebody come into my house and watch a single expert witness.
Oh.
So somebody comes into your house and monitors that I'm a good mum because he's told the court that I'm a bad mum. Then he orders an ICL, which is independent children's lawyer, and then therefore I now not have my own law thing going on. I'm dealing with, proving to this lady, to this stranger, that I'm a good mum.
You're fit to have your own children.
And these are the things I think why when you say, why didn't you just leave?
I've never said that.
No, not you. You know what I mean. You know what you mean. Like you hear people just say that question and you think, oh, if only you knew.
And I think that the thing is that it changes who you looking at it from an outside perspective. Family and domestic violence changes who you are. It erodes who you are. It erodes your confidence. And gaslighting is pretty darn common.
Yeah.
And hearing that you are alone. And you got to experience that you were alone.
Yeah, I did.
You didn't have support. When you tried to reach out for it, it wasn't there. It was proving him right. You didn't have anybody else there. And so I hear people say, oh, if that was me, I'd walk out the door. First sign of raised voices and I'd be out. Why on earth would she stay there? She brought it on herself. All of those kind of awful judgments. The reality is you're not who you were when you
have no confidence.
No.
You have no strength because you are isolated from your friends. You are isolated from family. You are financially...
got no access to any money to be able to...
No access.
Yeah. And Centrelink, the... lady at the police station told you to go to Centrelink. That can take 8 weeks to get money.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you live without money for 8 weeks?
You know what? It's phenomenal. I remember sitting there and it was like one of those moments where you just realise where you are in life. And I was sitting there and I'm looking around like I'm in shock at this point because it's right at the beginning. And like I'd been crying and like so I'm puffy and I probably, smelt gross. I don't know. I don't care. At this stage, bruises, scratches, Yeah. And I'm just sitting there and I looked left and I looked right and I'm just like, this is where I'm at.
How did I end up here?
Yeah, where did life go so wrong?
Yeah.
You know, I've worked hard. I've had beautiful kids. How did this just happen? And I knew from then, you know what, it's just...
And it's interesting talking to you because I spoke to you probably not long after you had actually left.
Yes.
So probably within 12 months. And back then, you were still making excuses for him.
You do. You really do. And, you know, it's funny because as you leave, and this is just something that sticks in my mind, like I wrote a letter and it was never going to get delivered to him, but it was just some form of expression for me to get onto paper. And, you know, within that letter, like I read it not long ago, and I've put him up on a pedestal. I have thought, you know, if only, and it's just one of those moments. And then there was a photo with, at one particular time we were on a family holiday, which was horrific, but we've done the whole selfie in the car as everyone's does.
Looking smiling.
Yeah, and no doubt posted it on Facebook. But you know what it's like. And on the back, I've written him a message saying, you know, you have broken me. You've actually managed to destroy me as a person. And looking at it now, that means nothing to me. Yeah. But at the time, I just hit this one man who I clearly thought good of, had broken me and destroyed me as a person, destroyed my soul.
And, you know, talk about the idea of the mirror ball or the idea of mosaics, that you take something that's broken and create something that's completely beautiful.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You're doing that.
I love mosaicing.
Yeah, but my God, it's a hard work, isn't it?
I love mosaicing. No, you know, I just think you just have to really wake up every day, and some days are better and some... I didn't get out of bed for 3 days once, and I mean, I know that sounds...
I'm amazed you got out of bed at all.
Well, you have to, because my kids need feeding. But like, I remember just laying there, and it was school holidays, and my eldest come up and he's like, Mum, you need to get out of bed. We haven't seen you for so long. And that was the voice that got me out of bed, and that's the voice that still gets me out of bed. But it's not as cute anymore. It's usually yelling at him to get to freaking school.
Yeah. So you did end up for a period of time at a refuge.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, okay, so...
With 3 small children.
Yeah, it was... we were whisked off in the middle of the night, pretty much. We got given an address, and the refuge had any availabilities, so we were put out into this motel in the middle of nowhere. And keep in mind that I was also informed that it's confidential, not to give anyone any address, because if you do, he'll find it. You know.
You don't know who you can trust.
So, and that's right. And I'd already been let down with family, and I'd really struggled with that anyway. So keep in mind, my kids, nothing, no clothes, no toothbrush, because you were taken out of the house that quick. And even though I went back, in my mind, like back the next day, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're going to be just staying overnight type thing, because then we're going to get a VRO. Like, you know, the police has actually written this down this time. Like but it's not how it works. You just can't go in and get a VRO, which blew my mind. So we had nothing, and we stayed in this, and I had no money, and we stayed in this motel. I had no food for my kids. There was because the people who were running the motel in the kitchen, they didn't know who I was. They just thought I was a guest, because it's all confidential. And I had nothing to feed my kids, and I'm just thinking, what am I going to do?
Oh, my God.
And that night, they went hungry. Well, it was late anyway, but... And then the next day I was walking around, and I'm just trying to think, and, you know, I was actually looking for food that somebody had actually left. And that's the point that you start going, I'm in survival mode now, because you know what? I can't even feed my kids. I don't have money. I don't have
a
anything.
toothbrush, let alone any food.
I know. Yeah. And these things, they're looking at you and relying on you. And my youngest daughter's 3. The next one is, he's 6 years, so he's 9, and the other one, and my eldest boy's 11. And I'm just going, they're just innocent children going through what massive trauma change. They've been ripped from their homes with nothing. I can't even feed them. So that afternoon,
that must have been soul destroying.
It was, but there was
to the
this
point of being
strength,
worse than,
this strength within. It's a natural instinct. You're going to feed your kids, right? You're going to work out a way. If I have to rob a deli, I'm doing something. Rob McDonald's, I don't care.
Do not advocate robbing anything.
No, definitely not.
Just putting that out there as a community service announcement.
But
I know what you're saying, yeah.
So that afternoon, out the back of the restaurant, there was a play area, and people were eating out there with their families, and the kids were playing, and they were living in that moment of like playing with other kids and not a second of thought of what's going on. And as the people left, I got serviettes and I put everything into serviettes and in my handbag without my kids even noticing. And that night they were in the shower, and I divided it into 3, and I fed my kids. And that was the worst thing ever. That was worse than anything, because you have no way to make everything okay for them. But they thought it was great. There was no microwave, so they had cold leftover, other people's leftovers. They thought they were having takeaway.
Yeah.
So they're all sitting there bouncing on the bed, because they can eat on the bed because that's all there was.
Yeah.
Eating takeaway.
So they're literally having the time of their lives. They're not having to worry that what dad's going to come home like. They're getting takeaway. They're on holiday.
In a motel. We're all having a slumber party, and there's a playground down there. So
life doesn't get better than this.
That's right. So in like I can take that away, Yeah. But then the next day we were taken to a refuge. There was an opening, and it was actually it was just gone dark, and this beautiful, amazing Asian lady, Faye, and I don't know if I can say that or not, but she is amazing. She came out with a shoebox for them all, and they were wrapped up, and she knew we had the ages, obviously. And as they got out of the car, she gave them this shoebox, and I was like, I was just in a whirlwind, because I'm just thinking, where are we? I'm trying to see my surroundings.
Yeah.
And they opened this shoebox, and in there was a pair of pajamas each for them, and an activity associated with their age. Yeah. A toothbrush, like shower gels, and just little amazing things. And we went in there and we stayed there for, I would say, maybe 9 weeks, maybe even 10 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was the biggest blessing ever. Yeah. I met the most amazing people, and people that wanted to help and gave me strength from all different angles. Yeah. Me and my kids and the other families there, we went away for a weekend to Whiteman Park, and there's a little thing up there, and we spent the weekend just bonding with the children and making little things like warrior stones. And you know what, my kids still have, so it's a thumbprint into like a little plasticine, and they set them, and my kids still have them and treasure them, and a family tree, and just doing really special stuff together. So
how was it for your kids being in a refuge?
Well, apart from having no TV.
Oh, there's no TV.
There was no or air conditioning. It was over
a room,
summer,
wasn't
it? It was in February.
Oh, yuck.
And it was the hottest day, and we all had gastro, just so you know. I'm not kidding you. And
it doesn't get more horrendous. It
doesn't get any worse than that. We had that bad gastro. Everyone was pooing and spewing, and there was,
one toilet between four of you,
and one shower, and we're all just, and it was so hot, there was no aircon. And I remember my middle boy, he's like, Mum, why don't we wet the flannels and put them in the freezer? And I'm like, oh my goodness, you are the smartest boy ever. And I remember, like, my daughter, she was still drinking from a bottle when she got uncomfortable and stuff, and she's just laying on her back, and she's drank this whole bottle, and then she's laid there for 2 seconds and it's projectiled, and it's like, if you're not sick, we're cleaning. And it was interesting, but along the journey, my kids loved it because they had other kids to play with.
Yeah.
And like I was saying to you before, you know, I remember getting in the car when we actually got the go-ahead to go back to the family home. And I put it in reverse and I looked over at my son and he said to me, "Thank you so much for bringing us here." And in my mind, I'm torturing myself every night thinking I'm the worst mother in the world. We're sleeping on springs and, like, you know, there's no TV and it's just...
And you're at a refuge.
And we're at a refuge, but we were getting fed.
There's stigma with that though, right? Yeah, you're getting fed.
That's
not
right.
with somebody else's food.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, as a mother and as a parent and as a caregiver, I think you just continuously beat yourself up and we're so hard on ourselves. And I said to him, "Why?" And he goes, "It's just so nice to know we're not alone. We're not the only ones." And you forget, you know, they're going to school pretending that nothing's happening at home. You know, I'm just surviving myself. They're just surviving. So it really opened my eyes. And I was so grateful and can't thank the refuge enough.
And it's so hard because as adults, we don't talk about this.
No.
But
no.
Who does a 7-year-old or an 11-year-old, who do they have to talk about this while it's happening?
No one, unless I would say my kids relied on each other as siblings, like the two boys mainly. But yeah, they don't, and that's why I always had them in counselling. Yeah, from that moment. And you know, it's not counselling as if like they're getting told what do you know, tell me what happened or what's going on. It was just fun play to actually build their strength up again. And then they did group therapy, which was the best thing. My kids really thrived on that because they actually knew that they're not here with kids that don't understand what they've been through. Yeah. So
are you worried now, or have you thought about it, or, you know, have you had conversations with your older boys? So I think you mentioned that your oldest boy is, you know, he's starting to date now.
Yeah.
With what they witnessed, do you have to have conversations with your kids around what sex should be like, or what, you know, what they witnessed wasn't normal?
Well, I think that
I mean, I think they probably know that it's not normal.
Yeah,
but
they've
you know
worked it out. But no. I think that answer to that is every child's going to be different to how they respond. I have always been open, and like I said before, many people have always said you're too open with your kids. They're children; they need to be able to, you know, have a childlike mind. And I totally agree. But if they're not living in a childlike house,
exactly it.
You can't expect them to process and actually get it. And of course, I'm not going to be saying, oh, you know, in detail, but what I say is that what I was saying to them is that this isn't right and this isn't the way it is. And we've always had a very close relationship, probably because we had to sleep in the car for so long, or mum was always with them because she was protecting him. And, you know, and I respect my kids for what they have not put up with, I guess, what their journey has been. And I really do have a lot of respect. But they're good boys. And, you know, like I'm saying, I see the kindness. I never see the anger where there's physical anger. Yeah. Of course they get angry and they get angry. You know, that's right. But they have full control over it. And I've seen my oldest boy with his girlfriend, and he's very, very sweet. But if I ever had an inkling that one of them weren't treating a woman or you know, their partner. With respect, they would get a kick up the ass. But only because not only because they witnessed it, but because that's not how you treat somebody else. And that's what I've always had.
And there's no way
values.
That you're going to be part of excusing it.
No excuses. No. And my kids have had to grow up a lot and taken on more mature role. That I feel sad about, but they've never missed out on love, sports, friends, exposure to happy, healthy community, you know. And I've just tried to do what I can, and I think that's all we can do, I guess. Yeah.
And I know that I'm a bit like a yo-yo here, but
no, me
things
too.
Pop into my head. So when you were going through it and you left Adam the second time,
Yes.
Did you have to consider him having access to your children?
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm just sort of thinking back, going, at that time, after, sort of when I spoke with you after this happened, I remember you saying that he was having access, and you're like, no, he's a good dad.
Yeah.
And it was just me that there was the issue, and but he's great with the kids, which kind of springs back to what you were saying.
You contradict it's amazing how molded you get within your own justification and your own self-value.
Yeah.
And you think about it, 13, 14, and you've been molded into this person, and you sort of just accept because you think that that's what life is, and when you don't have family support, or you haven't got that friend that you can tell, because you just keep everything so hidden. And I think, it sort of just brings it all together, I guess. But that was another thing that I did have to confront. So the court system is a joke, and unfortunately, wouldn't like to have said that, but it is an absolute joke. I had to fight this man not just for a VRO. So there was a 2-day trial, and I had no family support. I was rocking up by myself, no support. He had his mum, his dad, his auntie, his uncle, his cousin, his brother, his sister, his brother's girlfriend, her kids, his girlfriend at the time, and her kids. So it was like
me against the world. Yeah,
but I'm standing up there, and there's evidence of the voice evidence of recordings, there's photo evidence, there's all these things, and his family are happily just sitting there listening to it all.
But even, these were your family. You'd known them since
that's
you were
correct.
13.
That's the hardest thing.
So it really is you versus your world sitting on the other side.
Your safety, your security, your only knowing. And that is exactly right, Emma. I think I found that harder to process, because when someone's physically, emotionally violent to you and constantly getting you in a bad spot, you can actually go ahead with that, come head to head with that person if it's in a safe environment. That's where I was at. But these other people, I lost my mum and my dad, and I lost my brother, and I lost my sister-in-law and my nieces. I lost them. I've known them since they were
literally since they were born. But also they got to see and hear what happened. That's such an invasion of your privacy.
It's humiliating, is what it is. And,
I didn't want to label it that, because I didn't want to...
It's humiliating. And when you've got the magistrate and you say, okay, he raped me, well, how did he rape you? You have to say second to second what action was happening that you can remember, because don't forget, we're all human. Our brains try to black all this stuff out.
I can't even make this conversation in a straight line. I'm not sure. And I'm not in a state of heightened stress.
No, and you've got all this pressure, and then there's the perpetrator sitting down, swinging on his chair, all confident and cocky, smiling at you and laughing to intimidate you that one little bit and that one last time. And then it didn't finish that day. So there was 9 hours of court, and it's emotionally, physically. Yeah. We had to go back the next day for the verdict, and there was 4 hours of me being on the stand. And it's just...
You must have been
just
an
for a VRO.
Shell. Oh my goodness.
I'm not kidding you. Just because he contested the VRO.
And, my asking earlier, why wasn't he arrested? Oh, this is why. Because if this is what it was for a VRO, what would you have had to go through in order for him to... And I'm not suggesting that anybody shouldn't press charges. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, and, it's finding the strength to do it, and just trying to pull whatever you have left in your bag. And you are an amazingly strong, resilient woman. You have the things that you have managed to achieve, and yet it took everything from you. Yep. You're just living on adrenaline and a prayer. Exactly. Adrenaline and somebody looking over me, surely. I don't know. I have 3 beautiful kids, and now I have 7. Yeah. And, that's the thing. I think you just got to really see that, glass is half full. Yeah. not sure what it's full of.
And then, mine's Scotch. No.
Oh dear.
But yeah, it's definitely a journey.
Yeah. And then he had access to your children.
Yeah. So from there, I gave him no contact because I was in the refuge, and you know. Then we went to court and I just gave no access because we were both too busy fighting this.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, mediation came along and we tried to do that, and I was put into the same room as him, even though there was a VRO on him at this stage, and I was so weak. He could just knew how to make me crumble, especially when I felt in a very small area with him, because he used to lock me in the room, lock me in the car, and you know, like just a lot of things. So you sort of start panicking comes in, and then you've got these two professional strangers so you don't even know what their label is, but you're just there. And they're telling you it's a good idea, you know, it's healthy and blah, blah, blah.
There's nothing healthy about this.
I'm just saying, are you actually reading any of this paperwork before you say that to me? Because once again, I'm getting no validation or justice here. Yeah. You know, this man's just walked away and now he's sitting on the other side, sitting that close that my knee could touch his. It's not a nice feeling. And in the end, he did end up having unsupervised contact with my children, and he had it for about 3 months, October to January. And then my little girl was laying in bed with me on the last day of school holidays, and we're talking about what she got up to and stuff, and she's like, Daddy made me sleep with his friend. And I was like, okay. So a little bit more of going into that. It turns out that she was asleep on the mattress where this other party that he'd exposed my children to had passed out. And from that day on, he never had unsupervised visits. Well, beg my pardon, he did right at the end, which the courts ruled in his favour, and he stuffed it up. So even with
that, the court still ruled that he could have unsupervised visits?
Yep. So he had supervised visits for many years, like through Relationships Australia or Anglicare, and which he would hit and miss, turn up at, sort of thing.
All of these things, I just think, how traumatised can these children be?
I know. And how much do you have to say, let's just keep them away from him for a minute?
Yeah. They haven't been through enough, and now Dad's fighting so he can see us, and he's not even turning up.
Yeah.
And you don't know if he's going to turn up.
No, that's right. It's the unknown.
Then you have to deal with that afterwards, of trying to make excuses for the fact that Dad didn't come today.
Yeah. Well, by this point, I'm very
over it.
Open. No, I'm very open to my children. So I would never say anything that's going to make them put it onto them.
Yeah.
But I just let them know of what sort of person he is and where he's at mentally in this stage of his life, and it's nothing to do with them. It's just him being him.
Yeah. And it's so hard to find that balance of telling it like it is without trying to shape the kids against their dad. Correct.
Yeah. And you know, this is the thing, like the courts ordered me to do like a mother course or mums and dads forever or whatever it is. I did it. Every couple of weeks I would get random texts saying from the children's lawyer that he'd ordered on me to go and do drug tests, which cost me $25 every time, which is nothing.
But it is. When you have no money, $25 is a lot of money.
No money and 3 kids. Yeah. No child support, of course. But, you know, so all of these things.
Oh, really? Because I would have thought he'd been really up to date with child support.
No, dong. What gave you that idea? Yeah. But yeah, and you know, I did everything, and then they ordered me to do another course, and then I did something else, and I'm jumping through every hoop.
Yeah,
but I'm not even the perpetrator.
Yeah,
you know, like it just blows my mind. And then he
That's
does.
it. How is the perpetrator still pulling the strings?
Correct. And our system, I felt, was giving him those strings to pull. Yeah. And then he would turn up to court, because every 3 months we'd go to court to revise stuff, and he'd be like, no, haven't done it. You can't make me not doing it. And here I am, you know, driving into the city and paying $30 parking so I can go and do an Anglicare course, because I would jump through the highest hoop for my kids.
Keep moving those flaming hoops. I'm going to keep jumping through them.
I will always be there. Yeah, no matter what. So, yeah, I think by 7 years, the magistrate just said, look, it's been in here for too long. We need it out. You know, we'll sign him off. He can have unsupervised visits, but you can bring in your like criterias or, you know. And so I was like, okay, got to stay in the area, get him for a couple of hours, no drugs or alcohol, which, you know, wasn't going to happen. But
should go without saying.
It should, shouldn't it? Any parent would think that. Yeah. And then, second time he took him out of the area and brought him back 2 hours late, and that's it.
How much did you panic when those kids weren't back on time?
To be honest,
did you have panic left in you?
I didn't, because I knew he was bringing him back.
So I knew he was just playing games.
This is, you can't dictate. This is their mentality. You can't dictate where I take my kids. You can't dictate who I show them to or go and visit or, you know, expose them to. You're not the boss of me type thing. And I know he wouldn't want the responsibility of 3 children, you know, and the cost of what comes along. Yeah. It's all about power and control.
I guess for me, I was kind of thinking, would it go through your mind that taking the kids, whether that's, you know, taking them interstate or whatever that might be, taking the kids that's a way that I can hurt her?
Initially, when it all happened, definitely. Yeah. That was my biggest concern, because he knew.
Or even, you know, as I guess we see in the news, things where.
I know, we don't even have to say that. Yeah. And that's many times because that threat was given to me, you know, and he knew that one thing in this world is what I live for.
That's it, it's your babies.
My kids. And you know what? No amount of money, no house, no car, nothing would ever come in equation. So he knew he
and
had
that's kind of
else.
That's what I was meaning before, that, you know, when it comes down to it, it's just stuff, and your kids, they're your most important thing. Yeah. But at the same time, it's still your stuff. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, they're also your memories, you know, your photos or your little things that you've collected. Or your kids have made you, or you just...
Or the rocks that they collected, or the, you know, the nuts and bolts that they've picked up somewhere at a skate park.
And it meant the world to you, because at that particular time, you know, they've given it to you with loving arms. Yeah. And that's the thing.
Got a handbag full of, you know,
shells
beach
or something.
glass.
Yeah, that's right.
Nuts and bolts.
It's all with love.
That's it. Yeah, most definitely. So it's just, it sounds like what you lived through when you were with him is traumatic beyond belief, but that trauma didn't end when you got up the courage to walk out the door.
And you also have control to a certain extent of that trauma that's happening within your house.
There. Yeah.
Because your kids, you know where they are. You know you're protecting them. And many occasions, you know, like I'd get them out of the house so that they didn't have to sort of be exposed. But when you have no control and you don't know if he's under the influence or if he's speeding or if he's
just being
doing drugs in front of my kids, you know, they're babies. They don't need to be exposed to the bad world. And they're not, it's you lose that control. And that was hard. That was really hard.
And you know, we hear that from women who stay in family and domestic violence situations, that while I was there, I felt like I had some sense of control. Correct. That I could do something to protect them. Yep. But if I'm not there, I don't know, is he going to, you know, the violence that he was showing towards me, is he going to start showing that towards the kids? Or the sexual violence that he was showing, is he going to start showing that towards the kids? And it is a way.
And the exposure to what are they being exposed to? You know, and that was a big thing for me, because you think, oh, I'm out, I've done it, you know, you're back in the house, but then all of a sudden, you know, you have to meet this person somewhere and hand over these
innocent little children, the most precious things,
and your job's to protect them.
Yeah,
and you're just handing them over to it's just unpredictable. It's unpredictable. That's what it is, and that's the scariest thing. So,
and look, we've gone way over time, so thank you so much for your time. I've still got some questions though. So, but we won't, which is sad that we don't get to go into how you ended up with 7 children and 2 dogs.
No, we'll save that. We'll save that episode, the funny farm, for another day.
But if you were speaking, like, if there's somebody who's listening to this who's living in family and domestic violence, what would you say to them? What's one thing that would have really helped you?
That you're not alone, and there is help out there, and 9 times out of 10 that helps from strangers and professional strangers, I guess I should say. So those numbers that Emma's going to either say or put up, just if you just need to talk to somebody, they're not going to come in and take your kids away. These were all my thoughts.
Yeah.
If I expose this, like, what's going to happen to my kids, you know, or they're not going to understand. It was just the counselling on the phone, and just they're really amazing organisation and amazing souls behind those phones. But just know you're not alone, and you do have the strength to do what's right for you.
And I think that's really important as well, that, over here we've got family and children's services. They're not out to try and take your children away from you.
But when you think you're
100%,
exposing them, you know, you think I'm exposing them because I'm not leaving, but these people understand more than you would know. Yeah. And I think that's where my advice would be, is just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
You don't have to give a name. You don't even have to, you can hang up if you start getting panicky. I did that many times.
I also think, so one of the things that I tell people is that if you ring and the person who's on the other end of the phone isn't one of the good ones, hang up and call again.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
Because there are some amazing people who are on these helplines, and there's 1 or 2 that you think, oh, I'm wondering why you're answering this call.
Yeah.
Hang up.
Yeah.
Call again until you get somebody who you do connect with. And it's the same with therapy. If you find a therapist and you think, this isn't for me, find another therapist.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And counselling is a huge thing. I mean, I've been in counselling probably 20 years, I'd say. But it's just, you hear something from an outside point of view.
Yeah.
Instead of living in your turmoil and your anxiety.
And it's somebody they're literally paid to listen, and they're paid to help you make sense of the world.
Yeah.
So
give you the tools, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's, I don't need that. I've got supportive friends. They don't have the skills to be able to give you the tools to be able to get through what you've got to go through.
Yeah. And I think you're guarded when you talk to your friends, no matter how much you don't think you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the other questions I wanted to ask. What was it like for you having to tell people?
Horrific. It was horrific when it all came out. I hated saying that I've been in a domestic violence relationship. I couldn't admit that I was sexually abused for about 4 years. It's only now that I have told people that didn't know who were in the courtroom. And yeah, it's judgment, and it's the uneducated opinions, and it's the talking over in the corner, and it's the, and I think as I'm getting older, and I'm reading this amazing book actually, but just who cares what other people think? And it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
I think for me, everything's just dropping into place now, and like I said to you before, how do you ever get past it? I don't think I'll ever get past it, but just learning to use it as a strength.
One of the things that I saw so we were sitting, I don't know whether or not you remember this, but we were sitting at a picnic table, and there were probably 6 women sitting around this table, and you shared what had happened. Mm-hmm. And of the 6 women that were sitting, I might cry. I cry a lot. But of
That's okay. I might cry too, because I do remember. Yep.
Of the 6 women that were sitting around there, I think probably 4 of them said, they didn't know how to respond, and they said, I'm so sorry. Mm. And what I saw in you was shame, because these people were feeling sorry for you. Oh, God, I'm going to cry. I'm sorry. Yep. And I didn't know how to make that better.
No, and that's the thing. I don't think there's a way to make it better, because that is anyone's response, I guess. But it was huge for me to say it that day because I hadn't told anyone from such an outside circle, you know, and it was, and the responses throughout time, sometimes it makes you feel like you're nothing.
I remember, so I saw you go into yourself when these people were saying that they were sorry, you know, and how, you know, and what that did to you. And I said to you, I'm not going to tell you that I'm sorry because you are so incredibly strong. And I
gave me a hug.
And it just, that seemed to just lift you a little bit, that actually somebody's not seeing me as a victim.
That's right.
They're seeing that I've managed to come through this. Yeah.
And you're seeing the positive in me as a person.
Yeah. And it was just, I suppose because we hadn't had any clue.
No, I know. And it is people's initial, I'm sorry to hear that, or, you know, wow. And you just think, you just don't get it. You just don't get it.
No, and I think that then, you know, the other women suggesting they should get you onto Tinder.
Yeah, no,
I'm not sure we're ready for that yet,
no, thank you. I'm far, far away from Tinder. No man is coming anywhere near me. No. But yeah, I think that's people's reaction. And this is the thing. I think it's so important that women talk about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it took a lot. It was so hard for me to tell my family.
Yeah.
My sister, I remember ringing her and telling her and thinking that she's going to be judging me or like how's she going to be looking at me? I've had her kids and what's she going to be thinking? You know, and that's your own blood. Yeah. Let alone, you know, sitting with a group of women. And women can be very intimidating, especially when you have no confidence. Yeah. Because you're...
So what would be a good way for people to respond when somebody discloses something like that?
I would probably say very similar to how you responded, giving a strong note of a positive, like it's amazing to hear when someone says you're a strong person, because at that time you feel like you're just underwater and you can't even have the strength to get a breath of fresh air, you know. And I think also offering help, as in, I mean, clearly not everyone can help, but, you know, just is there something I can do for you? Or are the kids all right? Or, you know, are you okay? Yeah. Because I'm here if you need me. Or just because you can't fix it. Yeah. You know?
No, that's
no
it.
other person
but
can
you can
fix
maybe
it.
Bring around a casserole.
Oh, that's right. Don't come around though. You're not allowed to come around. No. You know, bring it at the meeting.
Yeah, that's it. When you going to school drop off or something like that.
Yeah, no one's ever allowed to knock on your door because you don't know what they're knocking on the door and what's happening behind closed doors. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
no, most definitely. And so if you were, you know, if you found out that a friend was going through this or a relative, whatever that is, what advice would you give to those friends or relatives for how they can be supportive?
Okay, so this is happening at the moment, and this is one of those 7 children. She was in the home, and she was just coming around to our house visiting and the kids and stuff. And it was funny because I'm very switched on to certain things, and it was just little things she was saying that I picked up. There was violence in her home. She never told me. I never ever confronted her with it. Yeah. Long story short, she's now living with us. But I have a strong connection with her mum because I met her mum, and me and her are now friends. Mm-hmm. She's going through very similar, not so violent, but a similar situation, and she can't just leave. Yeah. She can't. And you know what? It's not time. She needs to be the one to leave. Yeah. I can't say to her, you need to get out of there. She needs to be. But I've offered, there's a bedroom at my house. That's all I can offer. Yeah. I can support, you know, you staying here until you can find your own feet. Yeah. So it's just the support, but it's also just having her talking to me and just being able to talk without any judgment. Yeah. And, you know, I'm more than happy just to sit there and listen. And if she starts crying, you know what, it's nice just to give her a hug. Yeah. Or just, you know, we quite often just sit on the beach and might not talk about anything associated with that. But I think it's just having no judgment and being within somebody's presence.
That's it. Just knowing that there's somebody there who believes you.
Believes you. Because I did not get any justification, I felt.
Yeah.
I think I needed him to say sorry, but he's never going to say sorry. And years of counselling,
I think you might need to let go of that.
I have. But these things, you need to let go of these things to be able to move forward. And I'm only slowly just getting there.
And as much as I'm joking, saying you probably need to let go of that, you're not going to get it. It's really hard to let go of that.
It is. It's really hard, especially, there's a lot of validation, I think.
And I'm guessing you had to apologise for a lot of things that you didn't do.
Oh, I said sorry every second word just to maybe diffuse the situation. But there was no validation or anything. Yeah. And you think all those years and the youth that we had together, and then becoming parents, and all those big steps, but they were never true, happy steps. But you just make them what you make them.
And that's it. So believing people, offering them assistance where you can.
And no judgment. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You want to be able to tell somebody that isn't going to give you their point of view, because they can't give you their point of view, You don't want to hear what they would do, or you just need to sit and listen. And me, I love it when people make jokes out of things, because you know what, just gets me through. I love laughing. I love making jokes, and sometimes they go a bit far, but
dark humour is my answer to just about everything.
That's right. And I think just the support there, and like I said, there's a room there now. I know she won't take it, but it's the most important thing, knowing that you have somewhere to go.
Yeah, knowing that there are options.
There's somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you'll, if worst comes to worst, you'll stand next to her in court.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. With another question. So I was hearing parts of your story that I haven't heard before.
Yes.
And I couldn't control how horrified I was.
Yes, I could tell.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
What's more useful? Is it more useful for people to actually be horrified and to justify why you that this is horrendous what you've been through, or is it more useful to kind of go, oh, okay, and to not respond and not react?
I think validation for people for myself, I hate people forming judgments, and that's why that's something I need to let go of, because that's not that's not my decision. But I think validation's a big thing, because for many years these incidents and these traumatic things you go through never ever get validated, and you never get the next day sorry. I mean, in some circumstances, yes, but and then even when in my instance, my parents-in-law, there was no validation, even though they knew. Yeah. So in my mind, I was like, well,
they're saying that this is okay and this is normal.
Yeah, and they turned their back on me when I took him to court. Well, when we went to court, I didn't take him, but so I'd lost everything, and then my own family wasn't there or validated. I felt that wasn't validated. So for me, I think it's nice to hear that someone says, wow, that is horrific, because it is.
It is. And you made it through the other side, and you are still standing.
I'm not sure I'm there at the other side.
With a scrap of sanity left.
No, I just collect animals and children, remember? That's right.
I think as far as hoarding goes, that's probably a healthy way to do it.
It is, isn't it? Well, they've all got their own character and brings different values to the house and brings different laughable jokes, I guess.
That's it. There's lots of funny stories as a result, isn't there?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. So every Thursday night we have a big sit-down dinner. Mm-hmm. And I usually do like a big cook-up. And so the kids always look forward to Thursday nights, because every other night everyone's got training, that, and everything. We never all catch up. And the jokes that come out on Thursday night, it's just hysterical. And you know what? It's so good to see everyone blended together laughing. And we've all we're all family, you know, and it's beautiful, and that's a value that I'll always give my kids.
And those are the things that they're going to remember as well.
They'll
my
remember
goodness, sitting together laughing and the joking.
And the stupidity. Like, you know, the eldest is 18, and then there's 17, and then there's 16 and 15, and they're the 4 boys. Yeah. And then there's the girl who's 17, and then the other girl's 13, and then another one's 11. So, you know, like when you've got 4 teenage boys.
How much food is on that table?
Oh, my goodness, you would not believe it. And it's funny because when I'm only cooking for a couple.
Oh, you don't know how?
I don't know how. I always notice there's like enough to feed us for the next 5 days. Yeah. And I'm thinking, where's these teenage boys to get rid of it?
That's it, to get through all of this food.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. And that's what I was thinking, that you've got, so yes, there's this thing that they've had these experiences as in the past, but they've also been surrounded by love.
100%. Yeah. And my boys, and it's funny, this is what I mean, I know they've grown up, and I touch wood because, you know, one's 15 and one's 17, but I can see values within them, that there's so much respect for me and for women. Yeah. You know, like my eldest ran across the road the other day to finish mowing the ladies' lawn. Aww. And like he wouldn't say no, take no for an answer. Yeah. And, you know, he's literally walked in from his work placement. Yeah. And he's just seen that this lady, and she's in her 30s, so she's not exactly
old.
She can push the lawnmower, but he's insisted, no, I'm going to finish it off for you. And, you know, it's just little things like that. And you see that they'll come out to the car and get the bags out of the car for me. You know, you can see gentle gestures. Yeah. So, yeah, I think definitely if I could pick a positive, they've turned into good, genuine boys. Yeah.
And so as we finish up now, sorry, it has gone a bit long. I'll cut this into 2 episodes. But as we finish up now, have you got any final thoughts? Anything you want to add?
I don't regret any of my journey. That's something I want everyone to understand, because I know when you're going through it, you go, why me? Why? What have I done to deserve this? You know, you do. You find those little things. But I think it's so hard sometimes to get through a day, a week, a month, even a year, 2 years. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And you know what actually saved me was, and I know this sounds so silly, but having a piece of paper every night and writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for from myself. So the first time was made my kids lunch. Yep. You know, and like I've still got these, so I know where I was. Yeah. And what I mean is, I read back on them and I can see how low I was and how much I was struggling just to stay alive and just to breathe and just to function, because some days you don't. And now I look at it and I think, you know, how far I've come. Yeah. And then you see your kids and my kids, and I think, well, you know what, every day's a struggle. Like, they're starting to turn up to the kids' sports now and showing their dominance, but you know what, that can't hurt me, because my kids are beautiful. Yeah. I'm happy, and I didn't die that day. Yeah. You know, that's a huge positive. There's a lot of women that do, unfortunately. It's the saddest thing.
And, you know, when you look at gratitudes, I think sometimes people can struggle with gratitudes because, well, I should put down that I'm grateful for my kids. And obviously we're grateful for our kids, but you don't have to put that every day.
Are we? No, I'm kidding.
That's exactly it. It's been a rough morning today. So.
Yeah, yes.
You know, so you don't have to say, well, I'm grateful for my children every day. But then when you write it down, is it enough just to say, I managed to brush my hair today? Or today I managed to have a shower.
You know what? And that's where I was at. That's where I was at. And it's, you know, you feel so silly writing them down, but make yourself write them down. Like, I made myself and I did it. And, you know, I think you strive for the next day to be able to put something on that page.
Yeah. And it's part of going through the day and going, you know what, there were things of today that brought me joy. Yeah. There were things that today
I'm proud of.
That I'm proud of, or to celebrate. Yeah. And it may be as small as, I managed to brush my hair today. Yeah. That's not small.
It's not. It is not small. You know what? It is not small at all. And this is where people got to really give themselves a break, because I know I didn't. And I mean, I think that's what delayed me so long to be able to move forward, until I realised that. And until I realised that I'm a good person, I'm a good mum, because you're told this every day for years on end with passion, drummed into your head that you're worthless, you are nothing, you are worst mum in the world, you know, like things that you just think, water off a duck's back, you know. But
maybe water off the duck's back the first time.
That's right. If you're hearing them every day.
Multiple times a day. And yet you still made sure your children had clean clothes, they were fed, they went to school every single day.
Yeah.
You know, despite the fact that you were sometimes sleeping at the local park, and
correct.
You know, they were still at school in clean clothes. Yeah. I don't know how you manage that. I struggle to get my kids in clean uniforms, and I've got a washing machine.
When they're confined to a car, it's smaller for them to get away.
I'm
joking.
Nice work. Hey, look, whatever it takes.
That's right.
Yeah. But I think that's a really good tip for people, is to actually take time to see what has happened every day that you can celebrate and be proud of.
Give yourself a break. Honestly, I think that's somebody who's going through, when you're going through such a traumatic life, because at the time it's not just a particular time, it's your world. When your world's turned upside down and you're trying to keep away from everyone and put on that smiley face, but you're beating yourself up for everything inside. We do it as women, but imagine living in that world of thoughts in your own head. And I think it's just important, just write it down. And I know you probably want to screw it up and throw it in the bin because it's so pathetic, because I did a few times, but you know, it's actually moving forward and recognising what you're doing. Yeah.
And I think you've had somebody gaslighting you for so long. You've had somebody telling you that you're nothing for so long. You be the voice of somebody telling you that you deserve to be celebrated.
Yeah. And it's hard to do that because it goes against every grain. Yeah. But you just point out those little things that you're doing right. Yeah. And you know what? I think you find the inner strength eventually. Yeah. I don't know, I'm still not there, but you know what? That's okay, because life's a journey. Life's a journey, and you know what? You just make as many laughs along the way. That's my key. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I heard you say, so as well as, you know, trying to seek some professional support, reach out for help. Definitely. Yeah. You know? And if you find that first door closes, knock on another door. Yeah. And it's somebody will help, because, you know, I've got a lot of dead ends, and I could name 5 particular people that I didn't even know and are in the health profession, and they just opened doors that have just closed all the bad ones. Yeah. And I've had support along the way. Yeah. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out. Yeah. Can save so much, and save a life, save your kids, save yourself, you know, just so much. And it is scary, but you have the strength. Women are very strong. So much stronger than we realise. That's what I mean. You know, I was willing to rob that deli or that thing. My kids were eating that night, you know. It's a good job you didn't need to. That's right. It is. That's it. And as much as leftover pizza wasn't ideal, it probably beats robbing a convenience store. It does. I know. No, and I know that we're joking, but thank you so much for all of your time and for being thank you for having me. So incredibly open and letting me ask some very personal and probing questions. Yeah, no, that's my story might just open somebody else's eyes or door, but your story may be the catalyst for somebody believing that if you did it, they can do it too. Exactly. And let me tell you, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Honestly. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for people listening, please feel free to share this for people who you think may benefit from this. And share it even if you don't think somebody may benefit. So hit share, because the more people that we can get hearing about family and domestic violence, the more we can share information and the more we can help women to access the support they need to be able to make the choices that are right for them.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of A Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. For more information on the services we offer, head to whws.org.au or Women's Health and Wellbeing Services on YouTube and social media. Looking forward to the next episode where we uncover the hidden world of women.